Hello guys, this is the video for our first Kaggle project for Wilson Lyle and Jessica Clemenson. The Kaggle project that we chose to work on was called Titanic Machine Learning from Disaster. The object of this project was to take a data set and predict whether each person lived or died based on the data given. For each person, you're given the following information about them: name, passenger class, as in first class, second class, third class, sex, age, number of siblings or spouses that they're with, number of parents or children that they're with, ticket identification, how much they paid for the ticket, and from which port they embarked. You're given a set of training data from which you're to use to develop your predictive model. The training data has a column that tells you whether or not the person actually survived. You are also given another document which is very similar. It has all the same things, class, name, all that sort of stuff, except this one does not tell you whether or not they survived. This is the one you're supposed to use your model on to predict whether or not they survived, and you submit it to Kaggle. Kaggle walks you through two different programs you can use: Microsoft Excel and Python, which is a programming language similar to the C languages. Now, we've already developed and submitted a few models using Microsoft Excel, but I will walk you through how we did it. We used pivot tables to show proportions of people who survived. Kaggle takes you through baby steps to teach you how to use these pivot tables, but I'll just create the pivot table that we used, which was more advanced than the couple that they used. And the one we used utilizes gender, passenger class, and ticket price. Before we do the pivot tables, we need to manipulate the data a little bit. Right now, 0 for sex means male and 1 means female. We will create another column and use an if function to assign male-female to each person. Alright. We will also be looking at how much each passenger paid for their ticket. We will need to create bins for that. Call that fare bin. I did this by creating a custom user function in Visual Basic. Pretty easy. Alright. Now that we have that, we will create a pivot table. Alright, survived is the variable that we care about, so we drag it down to values, and we make that sum, because 1 is survived, 0 is not, so the sum of that is going to tell us how many people survived. Drag it down again, and make sure it is count. Therefore, we can take a proportion of that later. Now we also care about gender, passenger class, or P class, and fare bin. Alright, now as you can see, it tells you specifics for each one. For example, it tells you how many females in the first class survived in the 20 to 30 bin, right there, and it's got that for all of them. Now I'm going to switch over to another document that's got the same thing, same exact pivot table, but it's already been played with a little bit. Alright, now when we're looking at doing the analysis of it, we got these highlighted in green because almost all the females in first and second class survived. On the contrary, these are highlighted in red because almost all of the second and third class males died. So, for our model, we will assign all first and second class females to live and all second and third class males to die. Now we need to figure out what we do with third class females and first class males. Alright, so all of the 6 first class males passed away, so we will assign all of them to die. when you look at these two, this cell right here adds up the 2 counts of survived for that and divides it by the 2 counts of total, and it gives us a proportion of 0.388. So we're going to assign survival probability of 0.388 to those 2 types of people. And when it came to the third class females, we split the 2 and grouped less than 10 and 10 to 20 together, and 20 to 30 and 30 plus together, because these 2 numbers are similar and these 2 numbers are similar. So we did kind of the same thing where we added these 2 and divided by these 2. We got 0.588, and when we did this one, we got 0.243. Now that we have all our probabilities, we will predict the outcome using another custom user function. This is the custom user function that we made, and it's got all the probabilities. For example, if you're male and your class is greater than 1, so if you're second or third class, predicted outcome 0, you're dead. Female, class less than 3, first or second, predictive outcomes 1. Then we got our 0.388 here, our 0.24, our 0.58 that we were talking about earlier, and it's pretty much just a select case and an if statements. Now we will go back to the prediction. Oh, also one thing to add, it uses gender, class, and ticket price. So equals predict outcome, sex, P class, and ticket price. And that predicted the first one was 0. Now let's drag it all the way down, and we've got our predictions. But when you look at submissions, our public score was actually 0.73, so we did pretty good. And just to remember, this is not actually the worksheet that we used the model on. We used it on the test, not the train, and that was the one that we submitted to Kaggle. Alright, I will now talk about the Python portion. The Python portion was actually performed on my computer, not Jessica's computer, so we had to record it and load it up to YouTube, and now I will talk about it. We did have some trouble with Python, mostly because I'm not very good with programming outside of Visual Basic. Kaggle does the same thing with Python, where it baby steps you through the first couple of attempts, and just like Excel, the first attempt is the model with that is based solely off of gender. So here's our code for the gender model. As you can see, it imports the CSV package and a statistical software called NumPy, and then next it opens a test file and then skips the first row because it recognizes it as a header, and then opens up the CSV file that we're going to write to, and then finally it uses an if statement based on gender to assign predictions to the CSV file. Now we're going to go in, see that the CSV file is empty right now. We're going to go back, we're going to run the code, just ran. Now we're going to go back to the CSV folder, and there's a document. You can see there's all the predictions there on the left. Now for the more complicated program. The beginning of this is pretty much the same as the last one, and right here is similar to what we did in Excel, where we're binning all the ticket prices. This part creates a survival matrix, and this part fills out the survival matrix, and that's kind of where the machine learning analysis comes into it, and it analyzes that matrix. And then when we go down to the bottom, this is the part of the code that actually runs through the test file and assigns whether or not the person survived, and it actually does write it to the test CSV file. We're going to go back and run it again, and go back to the CSV file, and we now have the gender, class, price based model. which also has predictions there in the left column. And as you can see, our Python submission did a good bit better than the Excel submission. And that was our project.